Alright, so if you've been a part of the furry fandom, and especially if you've gone to conventions before, then you've heard all the horror stories before. And not the funny ones that actually make you laugh. No, these are the ones where you could feel your stomach drop halfway through. The kind of story that starts with, "So I roomed with this person at a con," and ends with someone swearing that they're never splitting a hotel room at a convention again. Though the weird thing about most of those stories is that they typically don't involve a classic villain like something out of a cartoon. You know, someone doing something malicious on purpose. Actually, more often than not, they involve someone who genuinely didn't think they were doing anything wrong. Which may sound shocking, but from the stories that I've heard, this is actually the case more often than not. Most bad roommates don't actually think they're bad roommates. And it's not because they are malicious or careless, but because conventions stress people out. I mean, think about it. You're tired, overstimulated, and running exclusively on way too much caffeine, fast food, and adrenaline. You've been on the con floor all day, navigating crowds, noise, and constant social interaction. And in these environments, the hotel room you go back to can become the one place your body expects your brain to take a rest. So when that space that is expected to be restful is instead chaotic, stressful, or uncomfortable, it's a little bit more than just a mild annoyance, and it bothers you a bit more. And that is what I want to talk about today, though probably not in the way that you're expecting. This isn't going to be some call-out video or anything. I'm just here to name and recognize the patterns in this behavior, because if you can understand how people accidentally become that roommate, you can avoid becoming one yourself. And vice versa, if you recognize any of these patterns yourself that you've done before, you can correct them for next time. If the timing is convenient and you're splitting a room for an upcoming con, then this could be the kind of video that you send to the group chat before anyone checks in. This way you can avoid anything unfortunate that happens during the con itself. And I'm not just saying that just to boost my engagement numbers. Well, maybe a little bit. Let me explain. Here's how most people think rooming at a furry convention works. You split a hotel room with 1 or 2 or 5 other people because you can, and hotel rooms are expensive. And I'm not even going to touch packing too many people in one hotel room. That seems to be an exclusive American thing, and I'm not here to judge. Everyone's just trying to make it work. Though no matter how many people are in that room, for many, myself included, that room is more utilitarian than maybe the rest of the space at a con. It has a very specific job, a place for rest. The idea is that you assume everybody will be busy all day, come back late, crash, wake up, and do it again the next day. And when it comes to choosing your roommates, there's typically this layer of optimism that things are gonna work out. Like, we're all furries, we're all chill, we're all here for the same reason, right? And I do want to say that in a vast majority of cases, things do work out. A lot of the times you'll have great roommates, one that you want to return to other cons with. And I'll be honest, even just a fine roommate whom you never speak with again after the con is fine in most cases too. But there's a line between optimism and naivete, and when you cross over to the latter is where things really start to slip. Sleep schedules, bathroom timings, guests, noise, suit storage, fans running all night, late night food runs that add to the trash buildup. Most of it gets hand-waved with the most dangerous phrase in roommate history. We'll figure it out. Though again, I kind of see where a lot of that comes from. For many furries, it can feel awkward to be the person who wants to talk logistics ahead of the time, so people just avoid it. Instead, everyone just ends up showing up with their own idea of what's normal in a con room. What time lights go out, whether it's okay to bring friends back after the dance, where suit parts dry, how long someone can occupy the bathroom after suiting. Everyone has their own answers for that and don't share them with the group until it's too late. The problem is pretty simple. These unspoken expectations don't magically align when everyone gets there. Instead, they collide. And that collision is how most roommate horror stories actually start. Now, like I said before, in most cases, bad roommates aren't bad on purpose. It's more that they just have a set of expectations that may not be conducive to a good roommating experience. Combine that with certain personalities mixing together and things can take a turn for the worse pretty quickly. That being said, from the cases that I've seen, you could kind of categorize these bad roommates into 5 distinct categories, each with their own tendencies at a convention. First is the assumption maker. This is the roommate that isn't trying to be disrespectful. They just operate as if whatever feels reasonable to them must be reasonable for everyone else. They invite friends over after the rave because it feels normal to them. They may stay up late scrolling TikTok or chatting because it's a con and they're on vacation. They may play music quietly in their room or what is quiet to them. Or instead of taking the walk to visit them, they take a phone call in your room with someone who is on the floor below them while everyone else is trying to get some sleep. And yes, that one was personal. In their head, the logic is always the same. I'm not causing any problems, and if I am, someone would tell me. And again, at least to me, I really don't see that as being malicious on purpose. They are just expecting correction if needed. But let's be honest, we're talking about furries here. They're usually not going to tell you if something is bothering them up front. Not because they're okay with it, but because they don't want conflict with someone they're sharing a room with for 3 to 5 nights. So they end up putting up with it, and tolerance gets misread as consent. That is the core issue here. If you didn't ask, you assumed. And assumptions is how roommate situations go bad without anyone intending for them to. If a choice affects someone's sleep, space, privacy, money, or sense of safety, the responsibility is on you to ask before it happens. Next is the main character, and this one is a little bit more subtle because it rarely shows itself as one big moment. It starts with small inconveniences that slowly add up. This is when one person takes the best outlet for charging their phone. Their suitcase goes in the easiest spot in the middle of the floor just for now. Their suit head, tail, and feet start spreading out because they're still drying from the day. And by the end of the first night, the room is quietly but particularly arranged around that one person's needs, not the entire room's. Everyone else is stepping over gear, negotiating time in the bathroom, or shrinking their own footprint to compensate. Now, to be fair, cons do require a lot of stuff, but a hotel room isn't some studio apartment. It's a shared recovery space. If your comfort requires everyone else to adapt, you're not really sharing the room, you're occupying it. Next is the chaos generator. This roommate introduces unpredictability into one place people rely on for stability. Random guests after midnight that they didn't clear with everyone else beforehand. Bustling entrances from the dance when others are already asleep. Lights flipping off and on because they suddenly forgot something. Bags rustling at 2 a.m. while someone is looking for their badge clips or deodorant. Even constant door slams from entering or exiting the room add up too. Now, I'm not advocating for the idea that people are necessarily asking for or need perfect silence. It's more that they need predictability. When the room feels unpredictable, you have no idea what it's going to look or sound like each time you come back. This makes your nervous system never fully shut off, and for neurodivergent roommates, anxious people, or anyone already burned out from the con floor, that lack of predictability can completely derail their recovery. Saying, it's a con, no one really sleeps, stops becoming funny after a while and starts turning into manufactured misery, especially when you get older. Fourth is the hygiene denier. This is one that people tend to tiptoe around, but not me. I have zero tolerance for these types of people, so let me be clear here. This isn't about shaming bodies or pretending cons aren't physically demanding. Everyone sweats, people suit, people dance, people walk 20,000 steps a day. The issue isn't the sweat, it's the management of that sweat and other personal hygiene. This is the stuff like wet towels piling up, food containers rotting in the corner, trash overflowing, suit parts drying in a way that blocks airflow. And of course, not managing or caring about your own body odor. Fursuits in particular turned this into a shared problem fast. After 6 hours on a crowded con floor, suit funk doesn't stay localized, and no one wants to be that person who has to say, hey, the smell in here is making it hard for me to breathe or sleep. But again, I will say that to your face if I have to. But unlike me, most furries don't like confrontation, so it instead turns into resentment. And as that resentment builds silently, the room becomes a place people actually avoid. Hygiene stops being personal the moment it affects shared air and shared surfaces. And finally, there's the emotional sinkhole. This is one that many people don't think about until after the fact, but these are the roommates that use the hotel room as an emotional dumping ground. They come back upset about drama, rejection, or plans falling apart and immediately start processing out loud. Sometimes it's venting, sometimes it's crying with the lights on while someone's trying to sleep, and sometimes it's talking about one roommate to another roommate in front of that other roommate. I've actually seen that one before, and awkward is putting it lightly. This last type of roommate is especially toxic in a way that the other four aren't. Conventions are emotional environments. Social rejection happens, friend groups get messy, and burnout is real. But your roommates didn't automatically consent to become your therapist, nor should you force them to be. Support like that is something people offer, not something you should assume. Now, if you recognize yourself in any of those patterns, your first reaction might be to get a little defensive. Which is fair. Nobody likes realizing that they might be part of the problem, especially if in your head, you're just trying to have a good convention. This is why I didn't want to make this a blame or call out video and why the inverse framing matters. Bad roommate behavior usually isn't a character flaw. A lot of the time, it's just a stress response. People bring their normal habits into a shared space and then pile exhaustion, overstimulation, stress, and social pressure all on top. Add that on top of the fear of awkward conversations, being alone all weekend, or even worse, getting rejected from every social interaction, and suddenly everyone falls back to their assumptions because they are emotionally cheaper than communication. A lot of people become that roommate simply because they've never shared a hotel room outside of close friends, or because they've only roomed with people who were too polite to push back. And if it sounds like I'm arguing on behalf of the bad roommate, I kind of am, just in a little bit of a different way to help correct instead of blame. So instead of staying in the headspace of don't do bad things, I want to give you a more useful lens to look through this through. What do good roommates do? Even when they're tired, even when the con is chaotic, even when they're not in the perfect mood. And long story short, the difference is being intentional. Let me give you a couple of examples. Good roommates front load the awkwardness. A good roommate does the slightly uncomfortable 10-minute conversation before the con so no one has to have a painful conversation during the con. They ask things like, when are we aiming for lights out? Are guests allowed? And what's the process? If someone comes back late, do we want a heads up? Any early photo shoots where someone needs to get to the bathroom early at like 9 a.m.? Are we okay with substances in the room, or is that a hard no? The reason why this works is simple. Anything that becomes a conflict at 2 a.m. Saturday morning becomes boring and solvable at 2 p.m. the day before the con even starts in the group chat. Next, good roommates build predictability on purpose. Good roommates treat the room like a recovery zone, not a vibes-based free-for-all. They don't surprise people in the one space meant for decompression. If they're coming back late from the dance, they will say so. If they're staying out with friends, they don't just disappear. If they're bringing someone by, even for just a minute, they ask early, not while the door is already opening. And they do what I call quiet entry habits, because it's the small stuff that really wakes people up. This is like having your key ready before the door, your phone flashlight on instead of turning on the overhead lights if you lose something. This is when they have their bag organized so they're not rummaging for badge clips or deodorant at 2 in the morning. Their chargers and cables are separated ahead of time. I could go on. It's the difference between my roommate came back late and my roommate came back late and ruined my sleep. Next, good roommates take up space deliberately, not by default. This kind of goes back to the last one I was talking about, but good roommates don't slowly expand their stuff until everyone else is squeezed into corners. They will make zones. Soup parts on one side, charging station in another spot, makeup in one towel or tray, not across the entire counter. Luggage tucked away as much as possible, and if someone has a big soup bin, a camera bag, or a whole handler kit, they negotiate where it lives before it becomes a tripping hazard. And I'm not asking for minimalism here, I'm just asking for awareness. Next, good roommates manage fursuit realities like an adult. If you suit, you already know how much more complicated a room at a convention can get. So good roommates plan for that reality instead of pretending like it won't matter. They'll think about airflow. They won't block the AC return with drying soup parts. They'll keep damp items contained. They'll use fans intentionally instead of blasting the room into a humid locker. And if soup funk is going to be a factor, they plan ventilation, wipes, and quick shower rotations ahead of time. The vibe here isn't to never smell, it's don't let the room slowly become unlivable. Actually, doubling down on that idea just in general, good roommates also keep the room from becoming gross by default. And again, this isn't obsessive cleanliness, it's just general maintenance of a living space. Trash goes out before it overflows. Old food doesn't sit for 2 days. Wet towels don't live on beds or shared surfaces. If you do a late night food run, you clean it up that night, not tomorrow or in the morning. The standard is simple. The room shouldn't degrade into a place that people avoid. 2 more here. Next, good roommates regulate emotions without making everyone's job. Just because you're a good roommate doesn't mean you don't have hard moments at cons. Rejection happens, drama happens, plans fall apart. Again, burnout is real. But they do ask before dumping or venting. Hey, can I vent for a minute? Is all it really takes. And you'd be surprised how many furries would say yes. If things do require talking to someone, they might take that call into the hallway and don't turn the room into a courtroom. And most importantly, they don't triangulate roommates against each other. And if a conflict needs to be addressed, they will do it quickly and privately, not passively for 3 days. And the last one actually piggybacks off that last sentence. Good roommates do fast repairs. This is the most underrated green flag a roommate can have. A good roommate can hear, "Hey, can we keep it quiet tonight?" and respond with, "Yeah, totally." There's no debate, there's no getting defensive or offended, and there's no punishment for speaking up either. And arguably even more importantly, if they do mess up, they repair it fast. My bad, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'll change it for next time. This one is especially important because the biggest underlying issue in almost every horror story regarding roommates is relying on other people to enforce boundaries. If you think about it, that's a little bit unfair. Most people won't confront you mid-con. They'll withdraw, resent you, or just mentally check out. That's why so many horror stories don't explode immediately. They actually simmer until the trip is over. So an easy way to avoid this is to keep this internal question in your head all weekend at a convention. You don't have to ask, would this bother me? You can start asking, what would this feel like for someone who's already at their limit? If you can hold that perspective for an entire weekend, you will automatically become that much better of a roommate. So what does a good roommate really look like in practice? They don't have to be a saint nor someone who never makes mistakes. They just have to be a functional, mature adult who makes shared spaces easier to live in. The mindset is simple, even though the execution may take a little bit more effort than you normally would living at home by yourself. Think about these 4 things. 1, consent beats convenience. If something affects other people, guests, noise, lights, substances, temperature, shower timing, you ask. Not after it's already happening, not while the room is already committed, beforehand. 2, predictability beats flexibility. You don't need to broadcast your whole schedule, but you do need to communicate the stuff that changes the room. Coming back late? Say it. Early morning photo shoot? Tell everyone. Bringing someone by? Be sure to ask first. 3rd, a shared space requires compression. This is just being mindful of your footprint, your suit parts, your makeup kits, your chargers, your fans, your luggage, or your camera gear. Take up your share, but don't make it to default. Make zones, keep pathways clear. Don't turn temporary sprawl into the permanent layout of the room. And finally, respect matters more than intent. You can be a nice person and still be a miserable roommate if you're not responsive when someone is uncomfortable. This is where you change your response to, well, it didn't bother me, to, got it. What else do you need? And all of this can be taken care of before the con even starts. A 10-minute conversation about sleep, guests, noise, bathroom timing, and cleanliness will prevent 90% of problems that would otherwise blow up at 3 in the morning. And also, like I said at the top, if you're planning a convention right now, send this to your roommate group chat to get all of you prepared for the next convention together. Oh, and if you have your own convention horror story with your roommates or a green flag roommate story, share it in the comments below. The goal isn't to scare people away from rooming together, it's to help more people have the convention weekend that they actually came for. Alright, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already if you like videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay wild out there. Peace.